But some estimates say the new law could cost Texas almost $15 billion annually.
This is In the Loop. I'm Christian Bryant. The nation's most restrictive abortion bill, Senate Bill 8, has taken effect in Texas, banning abortions after 6 weeks of pregnancy and raising questions about impacts on Texan women and the state broadly. For the record, 80% of abortions in the state happened after the 6-week mark, according to UT Austin's Policy Evaluation Project. There's a lot of uncertainty about the impact of this law, in part because of what makes the Texas restrictions different than abortion laws in the past. In 1973, Roe v. Wade established a person's legal right to an abortion, basically saying that a person's right to privacy, including medical decisions, is protected under the 14th Amendment. Taking into account each trimester of pregnancy, the court created a framework. During the first trimester, which is up to 12 weeks, the court ruled a state cannot regulate abortions. The law has been challenged countless times over the years, which has led it to have a pretty narrow scope. Some states have tried to implement heartbeat bills, which basically bans abortions after a heartbeat is detected. But many of those measures have been stopped or challenged in the courts since it goes against what was established in Roe. What makes the one in Texas unique is the way it was written. For starters, the patient themselves can't be sued, but almost anyone can bring a suit against another person who helped in the procedure, be it a doctor, a counselor, even somebody who drove the person to the appointment. There is little precedent when it comes to taking the power of enforcement away from state officials.
The most pernicious thing about the Texas law, it sort of creates a vigilante system where people get rewards to go out to, anyway. And it just seems, I know this sounds ridiculous, almost un-American, what we're talking about.
There's been a flurry of other approaches to try and put a more immediate stop to Texas Senate Bill 8, but none of them seem too likely to knock down this law. Last week, the Justice Department launched its own lawsuit against Texas. The department's legal case relies on the argument that ordinary people, if and when they do file suit against abortion providers, will in effect be acting as agents of the state of Texas.
The obvious and expressly acknowledged intention of this statutory scheme is to prevent women from exercising their constitutional rights by thwarting judicial review for as long as possible.
The U.S. House is also expected to take up the Women's Health Protection Act when lawmakers return to Washington later this month. It would establish the legal right to abortion nationwide and prevent states from putting medically unnecessary restrictions on those procedures. But it's unlikely it would actually pass. Another abortion case will be heard by the Supreme Court this term. Back in May, the justices agreed to consider whether state laws that ban abortions before fetal viability are unconstitutional. The test case was brought by Mississippi, which has a state law banning abortions after 15 weeks of pregnancy, which is during the second trimester. That ruling could make a significant difference for the future of abortion laws across the country. At least 11 states have what's known as trigger laws. Basically, if Roe were to fall, these states have near or total bans on abortions that would automatically go into effect. On the flip side of that, at least 21 states have laws which protect or expand the right to an abortion. With this Texas abortion law going into effect, there's a larger question about how that might impact businesses within the state, especially tech companies. Newsy's Kat Sandoval takes a closer look at what some CEOs are saying about the abortion law and how that might alter the state's tech landscape.
Texas Governor Greg Abbott is on defense, telling CNBC the new anti-abortion law will have no impact on the state's growth in housing tech companies.
And this is not slowing down businesses coming to the state of Texas at all.
Texas is a growing hub for companies, sometimes referred to as a tech mecca. It's home to industry giants like Oracle, Hewlett-Packard, and Tesla, bringing more than 17,000 tech firms and over 200,000 workers who chose to move from California to Texas, in part because of a lower cost of living and favorable tax laws. But some say Texas' new controversial abortion ban may hurt its flourishing industry.
I think that the state of Texas should be worried because it has created a very unwelcoming environment.
A recent poll funded by an abortion rights group found 2/3 of college-educated workforce say the new law would discourage them from taking a job in Texas. In the long run, smaller tech businesses may be impacted too.
We may see some of the companies that have chosen to open offices in Texas or relocate, maybe reverse that decision.
Women-led companies in the state like Bumble and Match have promised financial support for people seeking abortions, and Salesforce is offering to relocate employees and their families out of Texas. Lori Lee Elliott is concerned the negative impacts of the Texas law will have a ripple effect on smaller companies like hers.
It affects smaller companies like mine that need to hire. Those companies really help bring in talent.
But larger companies like Tesla have been mute, its CEO tweeting, "I would prefer to stay out of politics." Governor Abbott says the state's conservative laws, with no state income or corporate taxes, are still highly attractive to companies.
It is accelerating the process of businesses coming to Texas.
Yet some estimates say the new law could cost Texas almost $15 billion annually, arguing it forces women out of the workforce to have and care for children. That includes some women who can least afford to be out of work or underemployed, such as women of color, immigrants, the young and disabled. For example, Black communities make up about 13% of the Texas population, but 26% of the state's abortions.
To bring a blanket law that is actually going to create yet another barrier to access to healthcare for these same communities will actually will only serve to exacerbate existing issues.
Erica Seth Davis and her company, Rhea Ventures, invests in a startup company focused on women's health.
There are a whole host of other reasons why companies need to be concerned about this that go from liability to simple issues of health and access to health care.
Most businesses have been quiet on the Texas law, but her group is calling out companies, even outside Texas, to step up. I'm Kat Sandoval, Newsy, Chicago.
All right, we're leaving Texas and we'll land in California after the break. When you're back, we'll tell you about how the state's recall election can have national implications.